The geocentric answer to the 24-hour Antarctica sun. Please stick around to the end, like and share this video, and share with your friends, please. And shout out to Lindsay at the Tomb of Illumination on Patreon and YouTube, and shout out to my boy Shane St. Pierre on TikTok, YouTube, and X Twitter for helping me with the visuals, the graphics, and everything. I'll split this up into 3 parts. First, we will review perspective and relative motion again, for those who missed it. Secondly, will be the tropical gap, the analemma. And thirdly, will be the 24-hour sun in Antarctica. Perspective and relative motion. Now, in the southern hemisphere, the sun's movement can be understood through its distinct seasonal cycles through the analemma, which differentiates from those in the northern hemisphere. The rotation in the north is different than the rotation in the south. The motion of the stars is perceived differently based on your observational perspective. It depends on where out on Earth you are viewing the sky from. You have your own slice of the sky pie. Now, the stars themselves maintain a consistent motion, and there is one single source of star motion, but yet it just appears as if there are 2 different rotations due to the observer's vantage point. Now, when you are observing the stars from the northern hemisphere, your perception of them will be rotating clockwise in one specific direction. However, when the observer moves past the tropical gap and you go into the southern hemisphere, about 35 or 37 degrees south, you're going to be viewing the stars from an opposing perspective, and that same stellar motion appears reversed, and it will be moving counterclockwise. This reversal is merely an optical illusion resulting from the change in your viewpoint. So despite this apparent inversion, the stars continue their singular unified rotation centered around the center vortex. The rotation does not change. What changes is your perspective of this singular motion. Therefore, the perceived direction of star rotation is contingent upon the observer's location on Earth. The same rotational motion of the stars will appear to move in one direction or the other, depending on the observer's perspective. Summer, the sun rises in the southeast and it sets in the southwest, and this pattern demonstrates the mirroring effect when comparing the hemispheres. The southern hemisphere celestial mechanics are reflected in the northern hemisphere, just vice versa in reversal. For example, the Southern Cross constellation can be considered analogous to the Northern Hemisphere's Big Dipper. Although they have different shapes and positions due to the opposing fields of rotation in each hemisphere, additionally, the Southern Hemisphere features a false cross constellation which can be easily confused with the Southern Cross. And this is mirroring the presence of the Big and Small Dippers in the Northern Hemisphere. Southern star rotation in the South Hemisphere is just a parabolic mirrored reflection of the Northern Hemisphere. Now, the dissemination of this information is often suppressed, potentially due to the vested interests in maintaining control over the power systems and the economic implications that are tied to the revelations of the flat Earth model. Secondly, the tropical gap. Now, the true Earth model coherently pieces together all of the puzzle pieces to present the complete picture, whereas the globe model is seen as a fabrication based on figures and false scientific misinformation designed to confuse you and the average person and to obscure the truth. Now, allow me to simplify the complexification, because it is complicated. Now, if you're going to be one of those people who are just going to say that I'm speaking a word salad, blah, 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 click away from this video now, because I ain't even really trying to deal with your inability to grasp this concept. The globe model was constructed through mathematical equations and delusional concepts to spellcast you away from knowing that there is a creator of this realm. The globe model was backward engineered from elevation angles from Polaris. They did that to spellcast you into just blindly accepting a random cosmological destiny as the mammalian primate line in the Darwinian evolutionary theory. Now, the flat Earth model can be explained through observational facts, observable proofs that I have already provided in my analemma videos, and not only that, but all of the biblical references to the ancient stories, philosophies, and all of the religions, all of them. They're all talking about that center vortex. Globe proponents believe that there is some kind of conspiracy to propagate the spinning ball Earth narrative. For some reason, they think it's a psychological operation. And one of the primary reasons that they say that is to keep free energy under the control for those in power. Yeah, there's unlimited ethereal free energy. it accumulates together in what is called the toroidal primordial ether. Just like Michael Faraday and Nikola Tesla referred to it as. Looking at the flat Earth model posterior superiorly, that means on the front top view of the flat Earth model, all energy expands in what can be described as a toroidal field. This outward expansion suggests that everything tends to move southward. North is the center, and everything opposite of north is southward. With the southern regions being larger than those in the northern region, this phenomenon splits up into two phenomenological rotations, like I said. The flat Earth system shows that energy is created between the tropics, and that the magnetic field does not travel from the South Pole to the North Pole, as traditionally described and depicted on the globe ball model. It's important to know this. Because on the ball model, you always see the magnetic lines covering the entire surface area of the round planet. Keep that in mind, right? It's going from the top to the bottom. Okay, this is what they are not highlighting because they obviously don't want to highlight the flat Earth model. Geocentrically, instead, the magnetic field stops at either side of the tropical gap. It drops straight down into the ground, travels through the ground, and emerges out at the opposite pole. Specifically, the magnetic field on the flat Earth model emanates from the South Pole at the Tropic of Capricorn. It goes through the ground and emerges at the opposite pole. And similarly, it comes out of the north, reaches the Tropic of Cancer, goes through the ground, and then re-emerges in Antarctica. The aurora borealis is explained by this model as resulting from the magnetic field, the magnetic north, emerging from the Earth and interacting with the electromagnetic atmosphere. We have an electromagnetic atmospheric condition. Okay, so it's very, 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 very important to know that the dot in the center of the polar coordinate map projection also correlates to the Tropic of Cancer being the southern North Pole and vice versa. There's an emanation out of the Tropic of Capricorn that correlates to the southern South Pole. There's two North Poles and two South Poles. You have to accept that. In the toroidal model, you have two North Poles and two South Poles. If you guys have seen many of Ken Wheeler's videos, he demonstrates the fluidity of magnetism by manipulating the ferrocell magnets, right? Through these experiments, he visualizes the magnetic field as it emerges and it recedes, right? The centripetal convergence and the centrifugal divergence. As Ken Wheeler would always move the magnet around, that magnetic field would appear to blob and then get sucked back in like the behavior of some jelly-like medium. That's our atmosphere. And now the 24-hour sun, the moment you've all been waiting for. Now, in short, this phenomenological concept is abbreviated as GMLC, Geometric Mathematical Light Caustics. And this occurrence of geometric mathematical light caustics can be explained through a simple experiment. It's called the coffee cup caustics that mimics this real-life phenomena as it actually happens on the curved firmament. Now, just imagine for a minute a coffee cup without a lid on it, and there is a fine light source that I'm shining out from. In this analogy, if the room is dark enough and the light source is controlled enough, the light will wrap around the edge of the cup of the model, just as it appears in the coffee cup. Now, we can apply this concept to the flat Earth model and the toroidal hyperbola, and it allows us to replicate the distribution of light on a curved dome surface, demonstrating the transition between day and nighttime based on the proximity of the light source from the black sun. To conceptualize the oscillational movement of the analemma throughout the year coming from a singular rotational vortex like the black sun, just imagine for a moment that I am the center vortex and I'm holding a flashlight and I'm spinning around at a specific speed, right? And I'm holding the light at a specific angle. Now, as I'm holding that light, that flashlight, and I'm spinning around, the analemma would work like this. It would just simply increase my angle of incidence, and then I would raise the elevation where I'm holding the light, and then it would decrease as it goes down on the analemma, either upward or downward on the curved dome. So if you looked at me, I would be holding the flashlight like how I am while I'm spinning, right? And while I'm spinning, I'm changing my angle of incidence up and down. And so that light on the dome is going to be going up and down. So I would be holding the flashlight while I'm spinning in circles at the same time, changing that angle while I'm holding the flashlight in order to induce different angles. And the angles are caused by the black sun's movement. And the different angles are what causes the geometric mathematical light caustics. Number one, as the light source transitions from its initial position at the circumference towards the center of the circular configuration, a noticeable evolution occurs in the arrangement of the caustic pattern. Initially, at the circumference, the caustic pattern exhibits three distinct cusps, each representing points of intensified light convergence. Upon incremental movement towards the center, the spatial dynamics of the caustic pattern undergo refinement. It restricts and contracts. This refinement is culminating in the emergence of an additional cusp at the apex of the circular area. Now, if you notice the weird-looking triangle that keeps fluctuating, this fluctuating progression highlights the intricate interplay between the placement of the light source and the result formation of the caustic itself, underscoring how variations in the light source position influences the geometric arrangement and the optical properties of light within the studied framework. Number two, when the light source is positioned at the circumference of the circular configuration, the caustic exhibits a noticeable characteristic. The cusp is located just beyond the third ring from the center. This observation indicates that the intensity and the concentration of light rays converge in such a way that a distinct focal point is formed slightly beyond the perimeter of the central area, where the precise positioning of the light source influences the spatial distribution of the caustic pattern itself, offering insights into how light behaves under different conditions of placement and proximity relative to the geometric structure. And number three, when the light source is situated at the circumference, the inner cusp of the caustic pattern manifests around the second ring of the circular configuration. This spatial arrangement denotes a specific arrangement where the concentration of light rays converge prominently at a distance corresponding to the second ring from the center. Such observations illustrate the nuanced behavior of light propagation within this geometric confinement, and it emphasizes how the positioning of the light source actually affects the intricate formation and spatial distribution of the caustics in optical phenomena like on the firmament dome from the black sun's ethereal light energy refracting from Polaris out from the dome, and then it oscillates back down in the analemma. Now, when light or a sound wave propagates perpendicularly to a surface, there is a point where light rays converge with the neighboring rays of light, and it forms this triangular caustic. This can be computed by drawing lines perpendicular to each point on the curve of the wavefront and locating the point on each line at a specific distance from the original wavefront. Again, let me say that again. This can be calculated by drawing lines perpendicular to each point on the wavefront curve and making a specific distance from the original wavefront along each line. This principle is demonstrated in that coffee cup caustic. You guys should Google it, where that cusp remains stable even if the initial wavefront shape is slightly altered. And if you guys actually watched the Globe Earth Flat Earth debate with Professor Dumb Dave and Austin Whitsitt already explained this very well, and this has been demonstrated thousands of times already, okay? So you have to think abstractly and transcendentally. This visualization process provides a straightforward explanation of how light can be distributed across a flat dielectric inertial plane, inside of a toroidal hyperbola with a firmament curved dome over top of us that is simulating the pattern of daylight and darkness dependent on the excitation angles of the black sun. Once again, it's all about the black sun, okay? It's very important to understand the two distinct star rotations that are observed from a single direction. Specifically, when looking north from a latitude of approximately 37 degrees south, we must recognize that the difference in celestial mechanics between the northern and the southern hemisphere. If you've seen my star trail explanation video, I go in depth on how the rotation converges based on your perspective. So inside the inner portion of the toroidal model, you have the stronger vortex that gives you one perceptual motion of the stars. And then when you move southward, you have the weaker force of vortex rotation at a different rotational perspective. Such observations are problematic on the globe model because the magnetic field on the globe depicts the field crossing over the tropical gap once again, and that's the lie. It's easily understood on the flat earth model, and the tropical gap is the key. The analemma is the key to understanding everything. I've said that before. The analemma will set you free. Spherical earth model does not account for these phenomenological activity. According to the flat earth model, Earth's magnetic field does not uniformly encompass the globe, nor does it traverse the entire tropical zone. Instead, it forms distinct capacitant regions on either side of the tropical gap. Contrary to some depictions, the magnetic field lines do not continuously loop around the Earth, as previously claimed on the globe. Instead, they emerge from the polar regions, extend towards their respective tropics, penetrate the Earth, and proceed to the correlating opposite pole. That's how a toroidal hyperbola works. This is more nuanced understanding of Earth's magnetic field, and it supports the flat Earth model as the default position scientifically, physically, toroidally, and transcendentally. So it's up to you guys who are following and watching this video to share it.